Hello, new and faithful listeners, and welcome to Remainders, the podcast dedicated to exploring the wonder and joy that is the movies, the old, the new, the remembered, and the sometimes forgotten. As we record this episode, it is February 13th, 2024, and our love of film is certainly in the air. Today, we'll be discussing the 2002 biographical comedy drama 24-Hour Party People. My name is Darren Varell, and joining me is my co-host, Patrick McIntyre, a man who never disappoints when it comes to texting movie memes. Great to be back with you, Pat. How have things been going for you?
What's up, buddy? Always such an elegant introduction. Always putting me to shame. So, and my clumsily ones. I'm doing great. How are you today? You got your coffee this morning?
I do. It is early as we've been finding our sweet spot pretty early on here.
Well, early for you. I mean, I've got my list of stuff already done, being 2 hours ahead of you. So,
yeah, LA definitely is moving a little slower than Chicago. So I guess that makes sense.
Is that the case? I think it's just more of a geography thing. So
could be. But, I think a lot of people sleep in more here than they would in Chicago. That's just my take.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I went out running by the lake this morning and there were a decent amount of people there. So,
yeah. Especially how cold is it right now?
It's nice out. I mean, it's nice for me. I mean, it's February in Chicago. It should be way colder than it should. It's feeling almost early spring over here. So I'm definitely enjoying that and taking advantage of it.
Yeah, take it while you can, right?
Hell yeah. Love it.
So are you ready to get into this great film, 24-Hour Party People?
Yeah, this is a wild one. I had seen this pretty quickly right after it came out, and I really did not remember much at all about it. I remember texting you. I was saying, like, yeah, I remember this was one that I got from Netflix DVDs. We're showing our age here. But when we used to get that was our main way of watching movies, was the actual physical DVDs, which actually officially just ended last year. And I remember watching this one, liking it, but I had not really thought much about it or remembered much while on this rewatch. And it was great that you picked it, because this is a great fucking movie. It's so unique in the way it wants to tell the story of post-punk in Manchester 1970s.
Well, I had thought that I had seen this film before, and I never had. So this was the first watch for me. And I'm just going to get into a little synopsis and then we can discuss it. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have seen this, maybe a few that haven't, but either way, interesting to put together music and film. That's both things that we love very much. So, the smaller the audience, the bigger the history.
Yeah.
24-Hour Party People from 2002 is a British biographical comedy, and I suppose you can say drama as well. The film is directed by Michael Winterbottom, starring Steve Coogan as Tony Wilson. Tony was an influential TV presenter, record label owner, nightclub owner, and man behind some of Manchester's most popular bands, including Joy Division, New Order, and Happy Mondays. The film looks to tell the story of the Manchester music scene and the bands and people within it. The film begins with the early punk rock of the 70s and moves through the club and rave scene of the 80s and early 90s. This film explores many recreations of real life events, even placing the actors in the room as it cuts to live footage of the bands performing. This gives the audience a real sense of what it might have been like in those rooms. At times, it's hard to tell what's real and what has been recreated, at least for me. The main character, Tony Wilson, often breaks the fourth wall to fill us in on fact versus fiction, or at least what can be remembered from those who lived to tell the story. All these years later, love is still tearing us apart, and Manchester is definitely still looked at as the mecca for some of the best music of our time. Patrick, I'm excited to dig into this. What were your initial thoughts watching this here in 2024?
Well, just how much of a beast Steve Coogan is. Looking at his, he's always been somebody I love, and every time he shows up and everything. But looking at his DB, it's he's got so much stuff that I've never even heard of. Obviously, a lot of stuff overseas in Britain that just maybe we have not really been privy to here. But it is. I get why he's such a towering figure, because he carries this movie in a way that I think few people could do. Like, because there's, like, as you pointed out, it's just like such a blend of tones between real life and fiction, telling the story of these real life characters, but then presenting it in a faux docudrama way that obviously embellishes a lot of it and goes off in weird tangents. And it really is his charisma and his ability to bring drama and deadpan comedy that just ties it all together.
Yeah, it's funnier than I thought it would be. It's actually a lot. This film is a lot different than I thought it would be. I didn't really, I suppose, know as much as I thought I knew going into watching this film. I was hoping I was going to see a lot more about Morrissey and the Smiths, and they don't cover that at all. Except at the end when they say, you probably should have signed the Smiths, which is an amazing part of the end of the film when he thinks he's talking to God, which is himself. But yeah, I'm not myself, not that there's anything wrong with these bands, but I don't really know much of New Order. I don't know much of Joy Division. I know those are bands that a lot of people in the punk scene and the rock and roll scene, and of course people who like the Manchester scene, are very, very well aware of. But they've never been super on my radar. They've never been bands I've just, gravitated toward listening to. So I kind of enjoyed seeing that there is, or, hearing in this kind of fun, whimsical way, the story of what it was like to kind of get this scene popping off during those times.
Okay, yeah. I mean, so that's a good point to start off. Yeah, so Joy Division and New Order were never really your jam, basically what you're saying, or just not really.
No, not really. I mean, even the Sex Pistols, I like the Sex Pistols, but then there's something about not being American bands that just didn't really gel with me early on. I think yeah,
for sure.
I was more closely related to the Ramones and stuff like that. And then like, even with the Ramones and that was my entrance into punk rock, of course. And then that goes into like the Sex Pistols. And then everybody who like loves the Ramones, at least in 96, which a lot of people might not know, there was Lollapalooza. And then there was like a bunch of like, at the time, I think Sex Pistols were doing like a reunion tour or whatever. And there would be even in magazines, I had this Lollapalooza magazine, and it was the Ramones' last tour. And they were kind of shit talking the Sex Pistols because like that band, as many people do know, was put together as sort of like a, I don't know, kind of like a way to make money. And so like the Ramones always looked at them as like fake and everything. But then there was the Clash, who was not put together, but was an actual band that started and formed largely because of like bands like the Ramones, except they were musically a little bit higher above, they were a little bit more intricate in the way that they were making music. So it's weird. It's kind of like, I was kind of more like pro-American bands back then because of the way that it was being discussed. The Ramones were kind of like, fuck the Sex Pistols. And I was kind of like, yeah, fuck those guys.
Fair enough. You were easily influenced by, granted, one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time, but still influenced by that for sure. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I got you.
But that kind of closed off everything, I suppose. And I would never be that way now. But, back when I was coming up at 16 years old, I was like, yeah, not really open to hearing much more about the world than what existed inside the Ramones bubble.
Yeah, I know. I got you. New Order was a pretty pivotal band for me, kind of like a gateway band. One of those, like if you're in like middle school and you start discovering music that was made before you were born, basically. And that was always a band that I loved early on. I know a couple family members, like my father would listen to them sometimes. And then, so I was definitely of the age of nu metal. And Orgy covered Blue Monday, and nu metal is making a comeback.
Sure is.
Nostalgia these days, so that's good to see, because nu metal was always kind of seen as the beaten child of the music group back in our day. The way they covered Blue Monday, and that kind of led me to New Order. And, it was just one of those things where music, if you just keep on tracing it back, you're going to inevitably discover new stuff that you'd never heard or that was more influential. And so, yeah, New Order was always a big one for me. Loved Joy Division, obviously. So that was great to see this in this, and it was kind of again treated in a way of like true life, but still playing with comedic tones. Obviously, even around the death of Ian Curtis, the singer of Joy Division, and his inevitable suicide. Most everybody watching this movie, knowing his fate, would be waiting for that moment to see how it's handled, and it's handled in a pretty serious but still comedic on the outskirts of it tone. So it was good.
Yeah, I thought they did that pretty interesting. I mean, a lot of it is kind of like commentary too about like rock and roll and like obviously the beauty that is the creativity behind making art and making music, but also like the dangers. They explore that, and then they also explore like kind of like why business and creativity don't really mix sometimes very well. Actually, that's a large part of the story here, as we find out as the movie goes on.
But I love the way it's handled, though. You have the suicide, and it is tragic, but then you cut to Tony Wilson, Coogan's character, discovering it, and he's obviously hurt by it, but then he still has got to move on with business, and he ends up having the town crier, an actor, yell out the death of Ian Curtis to the
and they're watching it on the news.
Right. It's so great. It was reminding me, I mean, just quick little tangent. I mean, I hadn't seen this since it came out, but the movie Control is a biopic on Ian Curtis. Samantha Morton, she's in that. And
awesome. I love her.
Sam Riley plays Ian Curtis. And that one is a far more serious docudrama covering his life. I haven't seen it since it came out, but I remember liking that quite a bit. So if you're looking for something more serious on Joy Division, that would be one to check out. I
actually never heard of that. I would really like to see that. Yeah, that's a good reco.
Yeah, it looks like... what year was that? 2007. So
yeah.
5 years after this movie. So
Samantha Morton had such a cool career. She was just in The Walking Dead a couple years ago as a pretty big character, and I remember being like, "Damn!" I remember seeing her in like The Crow, and like obviously a bunch of different films. She's done kind of under the like she's kind of like one of those cool, amazing like lead / character actors that you don't really like know fully. You're like, where do I know her from? You know?
Oh yeah, totally. Well, she looks different in all of her roles. So
right,
I mean, she kind of has a chameleon kind of vibe to her, even though it's her face is familiar. She's such a good actress. She can slip into so many different vibes.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, so this film, directed by Michael Winterbottom, you seem to had known some of his work before. I didn't really. Is that true? Do you know some of his other films?
I only recently just looked at his IMDb. Really, the only one that I've seen on his top movies was The Killer Inside Me. That's a one with Casey Affleck, actually, based on a novel, pretty dark pulp crime thriller. But yeah, that's pretty much the only one major one that I've that's been on my radar from him. I mean, he works with Coogan a lot. And so they've done a couple of, he did The Trip, which is a pretty great movie with Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon. And it's just basically them traveling and riffing on each other. And if you've ever seen the two of them doing their dueling Michael Caine impressions on YouTube, that's what that's from. But not like a huge person that's been on my radar too much.
Oh, okay. So more of a Steve Coogan fan going into this film then, and that was your knowledge of it. Okay,
yeah, for sure. I mean, Coogan for me is his obviously lots of great stuff, but we covered it here and with Coffee and Cigarettes is his segment with Alpha Merlina, which is a close second to the Iggy Pop and Tom Waits segment in that movie as being my favorite. You know,
it's just dawning on me. That's right. That's Steve Coogan in that, and he's so good in that scene. Yeah. Oh my God.
Alfred Molina is like, yeah, you're actually my cousin. Can I get your number? It's kind of a rule. I don't really give out my number. And then he finds out he's connected to Spike Jones and whatnot.
Yeah.
They're so good together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the beauty of Coogan is that he's so prevalent and so dry with his humor that sometimes it's just, you love it and it just keeps on going.
And the cinematography in this, Robbie Mueller. Did you know that?
Nope. You got to teach me. You got to educate me on that.
Well, that's someone who works with Jim Jarmusch, like pretty
Oh,
much
okay.
religiously. I believe he just died. Yeah, it looks like 2018 he died. Um, but yeah, he did Repo Man, dude.
Ooh.
Um, a lot of look, a few looking at his looking at his Wikipedia right now. Some stuff with Wim Wenders.
Paris, Texas looks like, yeah. Dead Man.
Yeah, which Paris, Texas. I mean, as the cinematography goes, yeah, I'm trying to say. So the Down by Law starts in '86 with Jarmusch. Then Mystery Train, dude. I mean, all these amazing Jarmusch films. Pretty much Robbie Mueller cinematography in all of them. Dead Man. I mean, wow. So yeah, it looks like 2002 he did 24-hour party people with Michael Winterbottom. And I mean, it's got a really cool, like, it's really hard to almost read the titles on this, because they're so like punk and they're like kind of like splattered. It's got a definite aesthetic to this film when it goes to like going back to the footage. It's obviously 2002 and some of the recreations have to go back to the 70s. So when they shoot those recreations, they definitely have like the film stock look of the time period. And Coogan has like longer hair and those 70s things. It starts out really weird too. Like it's actually like a kind of a cool thing because you're watching this film, you're like, am I watching the right movie? Like he's doing this like hang gliding trick or something in the beginning. And that's like your way into it because really Steve Coogan was a TV personality. And so they're kind of getting you into who Steve Coogan is. And he says it all the time. Like, I'm just this isn't a film about me, but I'm like a part of the film, and he kind of leads it, but it's more about the music scene and everything. And really it is about him, but he's as the narrator sort of.
Well, yeah, the vibe of Coogan is all right there in that first scene. Yeah, like you're saying, like he's doing the hang gliding, and then he lands, and then he starts talking to the camera. He starts telling me like, "Oh, this is what this movie's going to be about," and I think he says something like, "I'll be your Icarus," or "I was the Icarus of this story." Obviously, referring to like Icarus flying too close to the sun, being like him in his role of like bringing post-punk to the people.
I love that. Wow, yeah, flying too close to this like magic that is the music scene. Yeah.
But then he has that, but then he says it's just like in perfect British Steve Coogan fashion is like, and if you don't get that reference, you probably don't read enough.
Yeah, very good. I actually love because obviously he does show up as Icarus there at the end, telling him he kind of did a good job. Just full circle, as of course. And then, after that scene, you do get into the room where he sees the Sex Pistols on stage. But it's a good introduction to the characters in the film. That was a great way to do it because they're all in the room. And he says something like, there's only like 46 people here. Here's my wife who, this guy over here is going to sleep with. And then, this guy also is probably one of the most influential people in music. And it's all like a bunch of people just like enjoying the Sex Pistols and kind of saying like, because we all got to see the music that came through town like this sparked all the creativity. And he says it again later in the scene where the hacienda is closing and he goes, go steal everything, steal the musical instruments and go, make some good Manchester creativity, some good Manchester art with it. Which was like a nice little moment. Because it's kind of all about the scene there and kind of continuing it on into the future, maybe even past, the 80s, which of course we know Oasis is, a big Manchester band and others. So really cool way to intro all of the characters that you're going to see in this film.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely get the vibe, even if you're not too familiar with these bands or no, it's like you said, they show the Sex Pistols, the Jam, Iggy shows up for a second, Susie and the Banshees. So like you really get a pretty complete understanding of the vibe of the music, even globally. I mean, Iggy being from Detroit and whatnot, of the type of music that they're going for and his role and that influence of post-punk. So, I mean, yeah, like you're saying, like the credits, I love it showing that DIY style, that throwback to it. And again, this movie is now over 20 years old. And so we're basically halfway. Like in 2001, when this was being made, were basically as far from then as that was from the music that they were making almost. So
Wow.
that is kind of the shift in time and seeing how like things constantly come back and the stuff that never leaves, the certain vibe of the punk culture that never leaves mainstream culture.
Yeah. So much to look at in those 20 years, and how music has grown or evolved or devolved, I suppose you could say. Or
not grown. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not saying that that's the case, but it's a malleable thing. So
I would say, there's one thing about this film that kind of got to me a little bit. I think it's a little long. I feel like this could have been edited a little bit more. What do you feel about that?
I mean, yeah, I could see that. I mean, my guess is there was like, they could have had like an 8-hour cut of this movie.
Yeah.
With the way they shot it. And I definitely know Coogan's vibe is to just put a camera on him and just let it roll for hours and hours and hours, even though like it's a lot of improv, it's still meticulous in that.
Okay. So you think this is a lot more improv in this film then? Well,
I mean, I don't know for sure, but I just know he has kind of that vibe at least. But at the same time, it's almost like I think he like has a very meticulous idea of what he wants to be, but then he just lets it grow from there. So I could see like a 7-8 hour cut of this movie being available.
Yeah.
But I mean, what is it? It's just under 2 hours, right?
Yeah, I think
like it's an hour 50 or something like that. So it's
I just feel like some of the club scenes, they just kind of go on like a little long. And I feel, well, maybe that it's also a product of the time. I was actually just reading in that Siskel and Ebert book about how they were commenting on music videos and how like some music videos that were happening at the time were going to influence the way that films were cut. Maybe that's my problem. Maybe I'm just not even realizing it, but like I'm part of this social media culture now where I'm like, everything needs to go faster or something. But just the pacing felt a little slow for me at times for this film. Really my only criticism, because I really did enjoy it. Even though like I thought I would know more about these bands and I didn't really. So it's kind of cool. Like you don't really get a full backstory of the bands either. It's not like, this is not like a documentary or anything like that. Yeah. It's just about a scene and a time in history. And more so, like I said, like even though he says he's not the main character, you are really kind of getting more about who the Steve Coogan character like is and was. And he died, looks like in 2007 or something like that. So pretty young, but he was like definitely behind a lot of the bands that were popping off at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the style captures the hangout vibe of it's going for, like you said, you don't learn the specifics on a lot of the characters, but you're just there to hang out with them. And I mean, so at the end, he basically gets an offer for the Factory and the Hacienda, which are the two clubs where everything is going on. And he
says, the Factory is the record label, right?
The Factory, I got a little confused on which, because they had a couple different places they were bouncing around, but I know the Hacienda is the party, is the actual club.
Yeah, and I think the Factory is more the record label. But at the beginning of it, I think he had the idea to have a club and a record label, so I think it was kind of both. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, I mean, I got it jumbled around there. But so the Hacienda is the main club, and he gets an offer for the company, and he says it's not an organization; it's an experiment, and that kind of captures what is going on in his mind as the entire impetus of like what he's trying to do and what his character was trying to do with everything and the music that he was trying to bring to the people. And I think that captures it perfectly and also kind of explains why it's more about the vibe and the hangout style rather than any specific story.
And adding to that, it's like so Tony Wilson is who Steve Coogan is playing, and Tony Wilson, at least from what I'm seeing by how he's portrayed, is kind of like the fan, and no wonder the record label and the club didn't survive, because like even the way that he put his contract in blood that all of the bands get to have all the rights, and so of course that's not going to make him any money. And like when the guy comes to buy he's interested in like the back catalog of New Order and everything like that. And this is the guy from London Records. And he's like, okay, I'm going to give you this much for all this. And he's like, well, at least I didn't sell out. The one thing I could say is I didn't sell out, and I can go down with the, I can afford myself that, or whatever he says. And so it's kind of interesting because, yeah, it's like you said, we're just hanging out with these characters. And like, this guy wasn't a businessman in the sense of, wanting to make money on these artists. He just wanted to see like, and be a part of, even though like they're making fun of him half the time, because what do you do to like record label people and, people that are seemingly authority figures in, the music scene? You talk shit about them. You think that they're the enemy,
Yeah.
And so he doesn't really get much love, and he never gets super mad. Like even at the end, when the guy from the Happy Mondays basically goes off to an island, fucks around with money, does drugs the whole time, and they paid him to go do that. And then he comes back and has to sell them, the tapes back. He doesn't even get mad at that. At the end, he's smoking like hash with them or whatever. It's like, okay, cool. This is what artists do, basically, And
that makes sense for Coogan, because like so much of what I've seen, at least, is always him being kind of like a semi-pompous character who's a little bit in over his head and always ends up being the butt of the joke. So that's kind of a little certainly in line with the character. Not so much pompous, but Coogan definitely plays him a little bit smarmy. But yeah, I mean, so that captures, like, I was thinking about that line, like saying, at least I didn't sell out, and how different that is now than back then. In the 90s, the worst thing you could do in life, especially as an artist, is to quote unquote sell out. And just how much that is not even a notion anymore.
Man, you're so right about that. I mean,
the idea of selling out is not anything anybody young would think is a bad thing, really. Not at least like not like there's the worst thing. So,
I mean, you're so right about that. And I haven't really thought about that in a while. Like that was always like the fear is like, if you're a musician, you're going to sell out and you don't want to do that. I was even thinking about that recently with Green Day, and like, you think at this point in their 50s that they give a fuck about like all the shit they got for like selling out? Like they basically started punk back up in the 90s. All these other bands were so lucky to have Green Day doing that, but yet they got so much shit from their like scene for selling out. And like here they are, they're just like living in mansions for the last 30 years based off of a fucking hit record that they had. Nobody cares about that anymore. But then the alternative is the people who are selling out online these days, right? Like the people who are just like trying to be influencers so that they can sell a fucking couch or, some Pepsi product that's a knockoff brand, anything they can do to make like $20, from some company. And they don't even know what they're hawking. They're just like, okay, let that money come in and I'll sell it to the public. And I'll worry about if somebody dies from the concoction that's in this Pepsi product later. It's totally selling out every chance you fucking can in the world that we're living in right now.
Yeah, I know it's wild. Yeah, like I said, I can remember when if like you saw a band, you like them, but then you saw them in like a commercial or something, you'd be like, fuck that band. And now it's just like most people would be like,
right. Even the Ramones, like anytime you see a commercial, it's like Blitzkrieg Bop,
And now it's like, I guess I'm just thinking of like somebody younger in their teens, if they see a band like in a commercial, they're like, yeah, well, good for them. At least they're getting their next record funded or something like that.
Right.
I would say that's just generally closer to the idea and how different that is from this 2001 film covering the 70s. So it's like covering both sides of that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, at the end of this film, one of the best things is like you get to see a little bit of the history. You get to see the way that like the arc of like the scene, and you kind of get the idea that it's going to still go on. Like music is still going to be made, still going to be created. It's not like it's over, but it's kind of over for these characters at least. And you get to see this room at the hacienda, and all of the characters from the beginning, even the ones that are gone, like Ian Curtis and everything, in the crowd. And sort of like, this is where Steve Coogan as Tony Wilson is sort of reflecting on the time that he's had and just like how kind of amazing it was, by seeing all of them dancing in the club together. It's kind of a beautiful moment in this comedy drama here. But what did you think about that scene?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty impactful. You're talking about the very end, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I said, it kind of took its time with it, and you see the ghost of Ian Curtis for a second. He just sees him dancing and then looks away and see that he's obviously gone. And I thought that was like a perfect kind of vibe to like capture, like the ghost of this towering figure is just going to keep on being a presence for everybody going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Artists live forever, right?
In a perfect world, yes. Some of them unfortunately get forgotten.
Yeah.
Casting. I mean, Ian Curtis, Sean Harris. It was awesome to see him show up. He, I don't know if you got to him, but he plays the big bad Lane in 2 of the Mission Impossible movies. I think Rogue Nation and Fallout. And so seeing him, he's got those early scenes as Ian, and he's like confronting Coogan's character and like threatening him to fight him at the beginning. And you could just definitely tell that this guy he was so perfectly cast as like somebody who's like might go off on anybody at any time.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen we didn't get to those or whatever, but Lenny Michael James, I recognize from the Walking Dead universe. He was in also, I think, Fear the Walking Dead, but was a really big character in those. And he's really good in that. So that was kind of cool to see him. And then, we get to see Andy Serkis, of course, right?
Andy Serkis. So this is, I keep on saying, is this 2001 or 2002? So this 2002. Mm-hmm. So this came out the same year as The Two Towers. So basically the first time you're getting a view of Gollum. And so
you don't really in the first one, right?
No, yeah, definitely not. And certainly not his performance. And so to have him in this movie in that same year is hilarious. And because he just sounds so much like it. I mean, he still does, but like he's really in that Gollum phase when this movie was being shot. And then, so he's the producer. He starts producing. Is it for the Happy Mondays? Their album.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's having like the drummer go out on the roof. You just keep on drumming until I say to stop, and he's still doing it at night. And then he just goes off, and he ends up gaining so much weight, and he just looks like this fat Gollum in that scene. And it's so great to see.
Heavily, costumed out. You wouldn't really even notice it was him unless you had seen the credits, right?
I mean, if you've watched Lord of the Rings 1,000 times like I have, you can definitely pick up on Serkis's voice. Yeah. You're not if you've seen that a lot, that voice is tattooed on your mind. So
true. Yeah, I guess that, and that's the thing is like, it's really fun seeing like those kind of insane producers. Like those are always fun, like the guys who are just like making you do and of course it's kind of like, so like, okay, well, it's going to be this much an hour. And of course they're fucking around for half the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that shit. And then when you first get introduced to him, he's like, okay, it's going to be 50 quid an hour. And, I want rights to everything basically. And he's like, yeah. Steve Coogan's like, okay. And then the next scene they're in the studio and he's drinking heavily and smoking and making him do this stuff on the roof and everything. And it's just great. It's great and what did he say when he's recording up there? He's like, I'm recording nothing or something.
Oh yeah. He's just on the ledge, just with the boom mic. I'm recording nothing.
Yeah. So good. I didn't even put that in perspective that was at the same time of what a big year for him, huh? 2002.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Just quick tangent. I rewatched the Planet of the Apes trilogy, Andy Serkis' Caesar trilogy. I can say with confidence that is one of the most underrated sci-fi trilogies of all time. Have you seen those movies? The ones that came out between like 2011 and 2017?
No. So I remember seeing the Tim Burton version, right?
Well, yeah, that's different.
Which was earlier. And then I think I may have seen one of those films later on. I'd like to revisit those. It's not like I don't like those. Well,
they're very, so the Andy Serkis trilogy, he plays Caesar, and he is the main focal point of all three movies. He's the only character that is in all three of the movies. All the human characters come and go. The first one has James Franco, second one has Gary Oldman, third one Woody Harrelson, but it's all around Caesar, the story of Caesar, played by Andy Serkis, and he's the focal point of the whole trilogy. It's an amazing through line. The second and third movie is directed by Matt Reeves, who did the new Batman and Cloverfield. Great director. Those movies are so underrated. I think they are going to be remembered for a long time because of their quality.
Wow,
and
cool.
and largely because of Andy Serkis's performance. I mean, he is the main character of the trilogy, no doubt. And I feel like that kind of got lost at the time of them coming out, like the idea of an entire trilogy being based around a CGI character, even though it is Andy Serkis. It certainly wasn't marketed like that. And like I said, he was the only character to go throughout the whole trilogy. No human characters in more than one movie. And so I feel like that maybe some people lost the idea that it was his own story in that. So
super cool.
Awesome.
Yeah,
actor.
I mean,
Love him,
I think sometimes these movies, they are marketed the wrong way in retrospect,
exactly.
Here we are all these years later, and it's like,
I mean, even still, the idea of marketing a trilogy around a non-human face, I guess, would be still, a hard thing to do, but more so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Circus, classic. We also got Simon Pegg early, shortly after Space. This is still before Shaun of the Dead, so it was awesome to see him just show up.
Shaun of the Dead 2004, so this is like a couple of years before, right?
Yeah, that sounds right. He just has a couple good lines, and then he's at the funeral, and that's it. So
this film is celebrated. I mean, I wouldn't say like it's like my favorite movie I've ever seen. I really liked it, but this film is like looked at. I mean, Roger Ebert loved it. It's scored really high on Rotten Tomatoes, and a lot of people like really, really, really loved it. It's kind of interesting. I think like I've been hearing about it for years. I'm like, again, I thought I've seen this film, but I never did.
I mean, yeah, with the subject matter, it makes sense. The music of this era is certainly timeless, and it's definitely going to be remembered for a long time. So, as it being a pivotal moment in music.
Yeah, that's a good point, because people are like coming in for the music, really. At the end of the day, it's like I want to hear and see New Order, Joy Division, those kind of things.
And I mean, New Order is still going. I mean, Peter Hook, he just played a couple shows at the Metro here in Chicago not that long ago. So, and they sold out really fast. So there's definitely still a lot of demand for that vibe.
It's crazy to think. I believe this is the year we lost Joe Strummer, 2002. A lot of interesting big names around this kind of music were dying around this time. I mean, we lost Joey Ramone the year before in 2001.
That's what I was just about to ask. I thought it was 2001, but I wasn't sure.
And then 2004, we lose Johnny Ramone. So, wow. Yeah, this is kind of timely as far as like, some big figures passing away. I don't know what it is about some like punk rock and everything. It's like nobody really made it past their 40s,
They made past the 27 Club at least. So there's that.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, and like Dee Dee Ramone died in 2002 as well, right? Yeah. So, wow. Joey Ramone, 2001, Dee Dee in 2002, Johnny in 2004. Crazy.
Definitely end of an era.
Yeah. Well, okay. That is 24-Hour Party People. Anything else you wanted to talk about with this film? I'm glad we watched it. I'm glad it's like the first time. I think I would have been a little bit more enthusiastic had I known more about the bands before, or had I like enjoyed more of their back catalog. I just not super familiar, and maybe that's my fault. Maybe I've never, sometimes I always say that like music is something I don't get until certain periods of my life, like even the Clash, like I still feel like I'm still trying to get them and trying to understand them all these years later. I mean, I love them so much more than when I first heard them, but it takes a while sometimes for the best music to really permeate through my system.
Yeah, I thought I mean, I know you're a huge Clash fan. That's a little surprising to hear. So that it's taken a little time with it. I just re-listened to Sandinistas, and that album is fucking great.
Yeah,
just speaking.
That's one
crush,
that's a big volume to sort through. You gotta spend some time with that one.
that was like, I mean, I've never owned a physical copy of it, but it was like a 3 CD
Yeah,
original.
mm-hmm. Yeah. My CD of it was three.
Yeah, hell yeah.
3 volumes. So if that's how we're gonna gauge how big it is, yeah.
I mean, that was never really done. I mean, it was a huge deal when, like, Blonde on Blonde was like basically like a 2 album set.
Bob Dylan.
Yeah, Blonde on Blonde. That was so much longer than really any other album at the time, and then in the '70s with them doing that. So it definitely, it takes balls to be like, yeah, we're making an album and it has this much shit that you have to listen to. So
right, and I think they went to Jamaica to do it and everything, and I think they recorded that in Kingston or something.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you should. You're going to have more than enough people tell you to listen to more to Joy Division and New Order. I mean, Unknown Pleasures from Joy Division, Power Corruption from New Order. Those I would definitely recommend just listening to ASAP. So
yeah,
at least for the experience,
film, for sure. Yeah, after watching this film, I'm for sure going to get into it. Again, it's like I feel like there's like some things I'm really, really focused on, and I know a lot about music wise and film wise, and there's some things that are just like a whole, like you could see, like there's like a whole kind of genre or like a scene that happened that I wasn't privy to, which is kind of the fun and exciting thing about films like this. They can open you up to something new to explore and to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, New Order being such a pivotal band for me at a young age, it's the DNA of watching this movie is all in there, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
Okay, I have to comment at this point. So thank you for indulging me in 24-hour Party People. I enjoyed it. I think you did as well. For everybody out there, it is right now streaming on Criterion Channel, and I believe a few other places that are free on the internet right now. So check it out, especially if you're a fan of the Manchester music scene from the 70s to the early 90s, and I think you'll really dig it. My comment is really just right now about your background, and I knew when I saw you, I was like, there's some new stuff. It seems to grow every time, and I love the popcorn with the fucking killer clown coming out of it. And of course, I know you're such a big fan of Godzilla, but in particular, recently Godzilla -1. So that's cool to see. What does the sign say back there for anyone who's not listening or not viewing on YouTube? He's got his DVD shelf filled with great DVDs. It looks like he's getting his physical media going again, but he's also got a few toys back there. Which can you explain to the audience what we're seeing?
Just stuff that's been in storage for the last 2 years since I moved, and that I had not pulled out. So you got the Killer Clowns from Outer Space. So that's a custom made piece that I found at I think Flashback Horror. It's a horror convention.
Cool.
Probably would have been 15 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've had that one for a long time. The sign is I found in a flea market about a decade ago. It says VHS horror sci-fi, and it was actually
hell yeah.
It was from a vendor who was clearly selling like some old stuff from a closed down video store, and
awesome.
This was the easiest purchase I can make, decision that I can make that day. The Godzilla, that's just one I've had for a while, and then in the middle is the Thing. It's MacReady in the kennel. And it's I've had that one signed by basically the majority of the cast of The Thing over the years.
Really?
It's got a good. I mean, Carpenter cinematographer. Speaking of, Dean Cundey signed it. Basically, everybody who is still alive that who's not. I don't have Kurt Russell signed it yet, but all the other actors have signed that piece. So that's definitely my go-to. Merchandise spotlight for that movie. We'll go over that.
Good energy behind that one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. So that's just stuff that I've had in storage for about the past year, and because I'm pretty lazy, I just haven't brought it out. But I like
it. It's fun to see it in the background there, kind of like a nice a little shrine to some good films, And I especially I'm glad you told me about that sign. I just think about all the people that would have cruised the movie section and been going past there to pick up a great movie on Friday, Saturday night, just to chill out and enjoy. A great sign.
The VHS horror, that section on a Friday night was pivotal. The cover that still sticks with me is the Dead Alive cover, with her pulling the skull coming out with the lips.
Yeah.
That one is obviously, that movie kicks ass, and I saw that later, but it was tattooed on my mind seeing that cover when I was like 8 or 9 years old. Be like, what the fuck is that
the
movie?
impact
Jesus.
of like a thing. And I remember like the monkey shines. Is that it?
Yeah,
like with
that's
the wind up. That's another one.
Right.
Yeah. Like having a great cover like that can just say so much, right?
Speaking of great cover movie posters, that is so pivotal that we were discussing last week. So
yeah, totally. Okay, so any good movies you've seen other than what we just watched? You've been going to the theater?
Not a theater a ton. I finally caught up with Poor Things, Yorgos Lanthimos' new movie, which was quite good. I don't know what else to think about it. It's a loaded movie. I don't know. Have you seen it with Emma Stone yet?
No, we've been really wanting to go, but again, it just has to do with time. But it looked great to me. I mean, good cast,
Great cast. I liked it. I think that's about where I'm at with it right now. So,
gotcha.
I mean, I love Yorgos. I mean, I've never really rewatched any of his movies, but every one of his movies that I've seen, I absolutely loved. I would like to rewatch Killing of a Sacred Deer, because that's the one with
that's the A24 film that he did. I think that's like the start of his A24, right?
It might have been
Colin Farrell. Is that right?
Colin Farrell, and I'm forgetting his name, from Banshees of Inisherin. Barry Keoghan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's the two of them before before Banshees of Inisherin, and I remember that one being off the rails and really enjoying that one. And I like The Favorite a lot. But yeah, there's a lot of movies that I just haven't revisited. So it's, the Poor Things, I was kind of more not confused, but definitely kind of most ambivalent about in terms of reaction to it. But I did like it quite a bit, though. So
Emma Stone having an incredible year, coming off The Curse and Poor Things. I know.
I do need to keep on watching The Curse. The Curse is fucking fantastic.
Yeah, so where'd you end up on? Are you halfway through or something?
No, I'm still on the first episode. So
it's all good.
I'm taking my time with it because there's a lot to cover. But I mean, I have been catching up with a couple Russell Mulcahy movies, director of one of our favorites, Razorback, that we covered on the show. He's just an interesting director because he has such a style. We discussed his background in music videos, and Razorback being such like a kind of innovative B horror movie from the 80s. But so I've been revisiting Highlander, which is not really one I saw too much as a kid, with Sean Connery. That's fucking incredible. I watched.
Jesus, he did that? He did Razorback and Highlander?
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense now that you say it, but Highlander was like a pretty big hit, if I recall.
Yeah, that's certainly his biggest one. I caught up with, so the Music Box was showing Resident Evil Extinction, which I think is the fourth movie in that series. They showed it as a midnight movie over a weekend, 2 nights, and the Music Box is obviously so great. If they're showing anything, there's a reason somebody wants you to see it. They have their programming, like somebody's saying, like, this is a movie you should check out.
Like an important film, yeah.
And I only learned after the showing that's a Russell Mulcahy one, that he directed that one. So I rewatched that. Yeah, clearly the best of that series. And then also I watched The Shadow from 1994 with Alec Baldwin.
Oh, right. Yeah. Is that a superhero? Movie? Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Wow. Interesting picks here this last couple weeks.
It's all Russell Mulcahy movies. So that's the through line. And so catching up with those. And so it's been really cool to see his directing style over a lot of movies that he's never been like the name to sell any of those movies. He's never risen above as somebody like, oh, we're going to go see the new Russell Mulcahy movie. And he's still working, but it's great to see a little bit of appreciation with that. And my next one is Ricochet, which I've never seen. It's a Denzel Washington movie from the early 90s.
What the fuck? Yeah. What a career, this guy,
He's a worker. Like, his IMDb is stacked. So, these are just some of the more popular ones that I'm catching up on. So that's been, and it'll probably all lead up to a rewatch of Razorback in a couple weeks. So
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly so.
Yeah, it's a great film, obviously. Cool.
But that's been taking up my time. How about you? What do you got going on?
Yeah, we it's been rainy, like pretty bad for a few days. Earthquake a couple days ago.
Oh boy,
classic California shit. But that
do earthquakes happen all the time? Because in the 90s, according to movies, in the 90s, California had an earthquake every single day. That's what I was taught from the movies in the 90s.
They kind of do. It's just like sometimes you just don't really feel them. The other day, it was like literally because of my weird schedule. Like I'll wake up at like 4 a.m. after going to bed at like 2 a.m. So I don't really sleep much. And so during the day, I'll work really hard and get all my work done to a point. And then before I know, I have to get on to something else. And I'll take like a little nap like in between there. Or if I'm really going, I'll go for a run. But either way, that day I decided to like get into bed right at the time that the earthquake happened. And I'm in my bed and it's like almost like you put one of those coin app, like, old school. And It was like, and I was like, okay, I can't go to sleep now. It's a fucking earthquake. Yeah, so that happened after, it seems like every year lately since I've been living out here, this kind of happens like early. It's been rainy as hell, like a few days of like extreme rain and then like some kind of weird earthquake thing. And then it's like sunshine for the rest of the year. Yeah. So that happened and there wasn't much to do, but we did during a rainstorm go see Kate Berlant. She's comedian, definitely in a lot of films. She was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as the girl behind the ticket booth that takes Sharon Tate's picture. She had like a one-woman show called Kate, and we just saw it in Pasadena, which was really good. I liked it, I think, more than my girlfriend did, which is interesting because like I wouldn't go to these things on my own. It's usually her who has us go, but we really enjoyed like where we went and we enjoyed just going to these things. It's nice out here because there's a lot of good productions happening and kind of spoiled that way. And I'm trying to think, did you have something to comment on that?
What was her name again?
Kate Berlant.
So you telling me her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So she is in a great skit on I Think You Should Leave. I think the first season. I don't know if have you caught up with it?
I don't watch it. You haven't watched it. My girlfriend loves it. I know you guys would probably talk your ears off on it.
It's some of my favorite sketch comedy of all time. It's so fucking great. But she's in the first season. There's a whole sketch. It's a longer one, all centered around her. She basically gets the house. She inherits she buys the house of the creator of Garfield, and they stage an intervention at the house of Garfield.
Amazing!
It's so fucking great, and she's so goddamn hilarious in that. I just really haven't seen her in too much other than that sketch and then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So that must have been awesome to see her. I'm sure. She's great live.
Really, it was cool. Like I've seen her a few times. There's another smaller theater over here called the Elysian Theater. She did. A lot of the shows I see at that theater are people workshopping like what they're going to do for bigger stuff. So we've seen her a few times over there doing some stuff. And awesome. I love creativity in any form, even if it's not like something that I fully understand or like have enjoyed. I still like appreciate it. And I think she's doing some amazing things. I only say that because I wouldn't go see like a comedy show or improv or anything on my own. I really am like kind of forced into sometimes these things, but then I really enjoy them. It's weird, it's like I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the fact that I'm just so busy. Sometimes it takes a while to like push me out of my comfort zone of like work. I don't know why. I'm just like really stuck in work lately. Maybe it's because I want to eat, but anyway, long story short,
usually a good thing. So
yeah, we enjoyed ourselves. I've been seeing movies. I've been watching, talk about the True Detective series.
What's going on with that? There's a riff going on that I've seen.
Yeah.
The creator is hating on the new season, I guess. That's all I know. I haven't watched any of the seasons.
No shit. Okay, I have to read some of that stuff because I know, again, my girlfriend does read a lot of that stuff too. I try to stay away from it so that I could just like watch it, without.
Well, really, the only social media I like is film Twitter. I avoid all other social media now with a plague because it's terrible. But I do curate a Twitter feed where I can just look at movie kind of news, and then I'll just scroll through that maybe once a day for 5 or 10 minutes, and that's it. And so I'll pick up on stuff like that, and I think it's still great for that. But yeah, I just saw that either the creator or the writer of the first season is throwing shade at the new season for its tone or something.
I forget his name, Nick Palazzo or something. But yeah, okay. So look, like the first season, just like it ruined it for everything, because just people are never going to like any season of this show without. I mean, that was exquisite. You've seen that first season.
No, I haven't seen any of them.
Oh, you fucking crazy. You need to see that first season of True Detective.
I am not. I know I'm missing out on great TV. I'm not arguing that at all. I just, like, again, if I'm watching something 99 out of 100 times, I'm going to put on a movie.
Well, just like, and long story short, it was so fucking good that it ruined every single thing that, like, they should just change it from True Detective to something else, because it doesn't live up. Nothing lives up to it. But I still think that's a hard thing
with the changing with a different cast or a different story each season. I guess that's a different type of challenge, because you're not staying with the same characters.
Right. Totally. And in this one, they're using female characters that are both detectives, and they are kind of the same thing. They don't necessarily have a lot in common, but really they do, kind of. It's like, it's a weird. So there's like the rub, and like, you like that. You like to see these cops that, like, against everything, they have to kind of stay together to do the job right, but they don't necessarily, like, really would. If it hadn't been for this job, they would never be around each other. So I like it. I think Jodie Foster's a fucking badass, and I don't know the woman's name, but the other girl that is in it is really good too. There's some really good acting, and it does have some Thing vibes, which you'd like. We talked about that before.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely was piquing my interest for sure.
Yeah. So, long story short, everything is like good. I've been trying to fill up a lot more creativity, and really push towards a lot more art and do things. To start my year, it was a weird January. Like, it seems like nothing ever happens, and then all of a sudden, like, things start to happen at early February. So I've been busy, staying busy, and enjoying my life out here.
Yeah, I'm digging this. These couple of new pieces. The one to your left, I saw that on your Instagram, and loving it.
Yeah, this one is one of my favorites I've done in a while. I've been really collecting, like, old, cool, like really, really picking them out based on, like, pieces that I have in mind that I want to do in the future. So a lot of times what I have in the background, like, will be part of, like, the image that I put up here. So I'm going to be doing a lot more of that kind of stuff. I've also been creating a lot of stuff for, like, future shows and stuff like that. So other than what I'm posting online, there's just, like, a lot of shit in the background I'm doing. And yeah, I don't know. What a cool life I get to have, creating art every day. I mean, I'm grateful for it every day.
Hell yeah. Love to see it. You want to talk some music?
Yeah, let's get on to some music that we're listening to lately. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Because we are watching this week 24-hour Party People, I was like, we got to do some Manchester bands, right? And this is a band that I'm not, like, huge fan of, but their early records are really, really special. I got to play in the club in my band in 2017, where they signed their record deals or their management deal, one of the two, called King Tut's Waha Hut in Glasgow. And the band is Oasis. Everybody, I'm sure, knows Oasis. But this is a song that is my favorite Oasis song. And so when I was watching this, I just couldn't help but think about, so when you're in Manchester, it's pretty small, and it rained when we were there, which was perfect, because, Manchester gets this vibe of, like, dreary, kind of, like, at least with the Morrissey stuff, kind of brooding, kind of, self-deprecating feel to it. It seems to rain all the time. And Oasis is an interesting band, to say the least. Maybe because of the two brothers. It will live in infamy, but they have some great songs. And my favorite song is a song called She's Electric. I believe it's the Definitely Maybe record that's on. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, love that song. It's got such a cool melody going. And yeah, I just wanted to have a Manchester centric song to throw onto our jukebox, which you sent a great meme to me through text, a couple days ago about our jukebox selection.
Oh, right. I totally forgot what that was. That's right. Yeah, no, I was just re-listening to our playlist. So I was like, this is better than actual radio.
It is. It actually is really good. It's so eclectic, but it's like, in the best way, kind of,
I lifted that from somebody who wrote about GTA, Grand Theft Audio. It just said Grand Theft Audio radio is better than actual radio. And so I was just applying that to our thing, which is actually Grand Theft Audio radio is pretty fucking great too. So, this is on What's the Story Morning Glory from 1995.
Oh, What's the Story Morning Glory? Okay, I was wrong about that, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. I haven't listened to that specific album for a minute, and I'm not remembering how She's Electric goes. I do like that album. Don't Look Back in Anger has always been one of my favorite Oasis songs, just for my preference.
I mean, obviously a very popular band. I don't think that song was a single or anything, but it's my favorite for sure of their entire,
actually the third most downloaded song on Spotify of the whole album. So it's definitely a
classic.
Popular one. So
yeah. I guess I'm just not as privy to their popularity as most people would be. Yeah, but
it's hard. It's pretty difficult these days now. Back in the day, you could see which video was playing the most.
Right. If Spotify has anything to say about it, then yeah.
I know. I'm always curious just what that is. Just like older music and how is that reflected on downloads now or streams. But then newer music, and so it's very difficult to actually tell like kind of what's more popular. So
yeah, I think if they had a reunion, people would fucking shit their pants, like collectively all at the same time. If they announced the reunion tour, it sounds like that's the one band that fans just like have been trying for years to get to have a reunion, and if they ever do, I'm sure they're gonna make a shit ton of money.
Yeah, I was just reading an essay from Chuck Klosterman that he wrote in one of his collections, interviewing, I think Liam, and just going into the riff of the brothers and just how that played out with a band that just had such high expectations. Like with this, was that their first album? What's the story? Because they were basically
Supersonic, maybe was the first record. I don't know.
Oh, no, Definitely Maybe is 94.
Definitely Maybe. Okay, yeah.
That's 94. But just I don't remember this, but like the expectations of being like the next Beatles at the time, like just to like talk about like pressure that nobody would ever in a million years want, but they were living it out in the public as feuding brothers too. So
yeah.
It's just got all the ingredients of a crazy rock star story.
Yeah, which we love, which we're here for.
As long as it doesn't fuck up people too much, I guess. But yeah, it is entertaining. That's true. So
what you got for your pick?
Good pick. I'm my guy's from England. Looks like he was born in Chatham, though, so not quite Manchester. Billy Childish has always been one of my favorite musicians. Has he been somebody that's on your radar ever? Billy Childish. So he's been making music since the 70s, the epitome of like a DIY garage rock artist. He's put out like over 150 albums, over even more singles since then. Yeah, no, he is a pure like independent, like record as fast as possible, almost like a Roger Corman, tying it to movies. Just like it's always just about lo-fi, doing it on the go and moving on to the next project. And he's been doing that for decades now. Garage rock, like I said, I discovered him in the mid 2000s, kind of in the garage rock revival, because I know the Hives and the White Stripes both accredited him as being a major influence for them back in the day. And so, yeah, he's just an incredibly prolific artist. I think he still does play music and produce music now, but I think he, similar to you, just paints full time as an artist and what his main output of work is. The Milkshakes, the Headcoats are one of his more popular outputs. the Pop Rivettes, the Buff Medways. These are all just a litany of bands that he's led over the decades. And he's just somebody who's never stopped producing music. And he's always somebody I love. He's got a great memoir that I really enjoyed about his childhood in England. And so the song I'm going with today is We're Gone. 25 years of being childish is a really good entry to his music. It covers his solo stuff, all the different bands he's produced. Holly Golightly is a great musician that he worked with a lot, and he started a couple bands with her. And so I'll put a link for that album, because that's, with somebody with that much music, it's easy.
Right. Yeah. You just
to get
need a little more focus. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's cool.
And that's the thing. It's like, I mean, when you look on Spotify of what you can find from Billy Childish, maybe 2 or 3% probably of everything that he's, actually recorded.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Just the amount of like stuff that he's put out over the years, like throughout the 70s, 80s, I'm sure there are just plenty of albums that he produced that, maybe 50 copies exist out in the world that are not really available for streaming anywhere.
A bit like a little more focused Daniel Johnston.
Yeah, I guess that would be a good way to put it. Yeah, I mean, and he's still going strong. I see he'll play shows around in England every once in a while, just small stuff for sure. I've never had a chance to see him. I would love to one day, but I've never seen him play in the States, at least that I've caught up with. So,
well, here we go. I mean, this is the great thing is like, again, I don't know much of his music at all. So you're always bringing something new to the table. I'm excited to check it out.
Yeah, I mean, huge guy for me. Like I said, like in the early 2000s, kind of with the garage rock, like going back, like we've talked, like I love the Strokes back in the day, and they were like a gateway band. Like you just keep on going back to see who their influences were. Like I think I mentioned the Strokes led me to Television, which was one of my favorite albums of all time. But then just going backwards from there and seeing what their influences were, I think that's how I came upon Billy Childish. Now that I'm thinking about it, he might have been featured on Little Steven's Underground Garage back in the day, so maybe I've discovered it there. So
it's like a Sirius XM show, right? With
Little Steven, yeah, that's his radio station. He's been going strong with that for 20 years. That was a pretty pivotal one. Nonstop throwback to all types of rock and roll. So,
cool, awesome, man. So what's the name of the song again that you're putting on?
We're Gone.
We're Gone. Okay,
We're Gone. Great song. Great little garage rock ditty.
There's a documentary right now on Netflix that I did watch about the making of We Are the World. We Are the World, I believe. It's on Netflix, and it has a bunch of people interviewed, but mainly Lionel Richie telling the story of like how that all went down and shit. And like it's kind of interesting just in the fact that like you didn't really like realize how that came together and everything. It was like to cure people that are hungry in Africa, but like all of these stars in one room and stuff like that kind of reminds me, like you're saying, that there's so many like artists out there that just have like such an eclectic style. There's indie artists. Like the world is full of so much great things to find. I'm glad we have a podcast where we can talk about these things. So, just for me, for myself, I'm not just for our listeners, but for me to like, dive into something new and enjoy in my life.
Is that the one where Bob Dylan is in the background?
Yeah, it's great.
Really lazily just being like, I don't want to be here.
Well, because it's kind of like, there's all these pop
not in like an asshole way. He just looks totally zoned. I think that's the one. I know that image of Dylan. I'm just not sure if that's
there's a section of
section.
There's a section in it about that kind of like, he just doesn't belong there. He's this like, guy from the 60s that's doing all of these sort of protest songs. And here he is with all the pop singers in the world in the 80s in the room. Like, of course he's Bob Dylan, but like, then he goes on the mic and like, he's like singing like this, and it's real quiet. And they're kind of like, okay, like we got Michael Jackson going like, well, and then there's that,
that's
so
a
it's
good
like
Jackson.
But you got all of these different singers, then you got Bruce Springsteen and you've got Kenny Loggins and you got Cyndi Lauper, and it's like it's really cool to tell like a good story about how like they had to produce it with Quincy Jones behind it. Like who is going to be matched up with who, where are their voices going to go, how do we do the range of the song.
Right.
It's kind of like a interesting, like, and again, it's not just normal singers, an artist, it's like the biggest stars of all time, and they're, you know, egos walking into the door, and you've got only a few hours to do it. Pretty cool. And I'm actually starting to realize I liked it a little more than I did when I watched it, or as I'm talking through it.
Well, when you get a bunch of people in a small space like that, legends, sometimes you get that. Sometimes you get the Super Bowl shuffle, and just
I'm here for the Super Bowl shuffle the gold, all the time.
Gold is just made in the air when you put everybody in the room in a short amount of time. Sometimes, so
that's true. All right, well, cool. 24-hour party, people, go check it out. Good to catch up with you, and I think you got the pick next time. So this was my pick.
Yeah, we're going to stay with British documentaries. Actually, we're going to go into the Up series, 63 Up.
Right.
Yeah. So that's.
I know you're a big fan of those, so I've never checked out any of them. So I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot to talk about. And influence. Richard Linklater is hugely influenced by those movies. I know you're a huge fan of Linklater,
of course,
and just the. Seeing how those movies had been going since the 60s, and their understanding of time with their characters. I think
so. We'll be starting with the first one, yeah.
No, 63 is the most recent one.
Oh, okay.
They've covered these characters every 7 years since they were children, and 63 is them being 63 years old. So it's the most recent one.
Should we, as the audience, or even myself, like watch the other ones before we dive into it? Would you don't need to, kind of? No,
I don't think you need to. I think overall we can watch 63 Up and talk about the series as a whole. You get truly a revisiting of the characters. So there's not really anything you're missing. You're still going to see everything that led up to them where they are at 63 years old, and you'll get the idea of what they've been doing since the project started. So you don't have to watch the old stuff, but you definitely. It will add more to it. But talking about the project as a whole, the 63 Up is the most recent one, and that would be an awesome place to do it from.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I'm excited about that. I've heard you talk about this for years. Let's dive in next time. And hey, thanks everybody for tuning in and listening in to, I believe this is our 54th episode of Remainders.
Crushing the 50s right now. So
that's right. So we'll talk to you next time. And Pat, have a good week, and see you again soon.
See you, bud.
Bye-bye.